Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you on the airwaves. I've taken the show on the road today. Yup, I packed up and took us for an adventure. My set and everything. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly makes it all worthwhile. We have a great show lined up for you today. As usual, a mix of celebrities, impressive citizens, politicians, and a boatload of fun. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, let's guess where I am. I'll give you 3 hints. I'm at a location that is not my usual studio, but is home to the very first boardwalk. The boardwalk started off as a $5,000 1 mile long board in 1870 with no stores allowed to build within 30 feet. The boards would be taken apart and stored away in the winter months, then put back up again in the summer to preserve it. Today, these boards run 4 miles long and are completely abundant in restaurants, stores, stands, and so much more. Now, this place holds the first legal casino to operate in the US. Come on, that's a dead giveaway. Outside of Nevada, of course, the casino didn't open up until 1978 and went by the name of Resorts International Hotel. Now we know and love it to be Resorts Hotel Casino. Still don't know where I am? All right. I'm at a location home to the Miss America pageant. The very first pageant was held here in 1921, and as a way to try and entice tourists to stay in the city past Labor Day, they made a really big event out of it. However, in 2006, the show was temporarily moved to Vegas before it made its return back here. Still no clue? Oh, you did get it. That's right. I am live in Atlantic City at the very famous celebrity hotspot, Ocean Casino Resort. I'm excited to say that Atlantic City continues to see expansion and growth amidst lifted COVID-19 restrictions, and the destination offers patrons a very exciting first-class entertainment, shopping, beachfront experience, and all summer long. Atlantic City casinos are great. They're a safe place to enjoy outstanding entertainment, especially here at Ocean Casino Resort, and their food and shopping is incredible. According to a recent Lloyd D. Levinson Institute of Gaming, Hospitality, and Tourism, otherwise known as LIGHT, at Stockton University, they did a survey, and a large majority of visitors responded that they are ready and willing to return to Atlantic City. Over 82% of patrons who had recently visited said they are planning to return to Atlantic City within the next 6 months. And last year, AC was named the 3rd highest travel destination in the country. Now, in other relevant news, I'm going to strategically slip into my entertainment tip of the week right now. James Gandolfini's widow, Deborah Lynn, said that it was almost surreal seeing his son Michael as a young Tony Soprano in the recent trailer for The Many Saints of Newark. Now, it must have taken a lot of courage for him to take on this role, and his father surely would be very proud. Michael is just 22. He is the son of James Gandolfini and his first wife, Marcy Wdarski. They married back in 1999 and had Michael that very same year. Unfortunately, James Gandolfini died of a heart attack back in 2013. Now, fans of The Sopranos first saw Michael step into his dad's shoes when the first full trailer for The Many Saints of Newark, a prequel to the HBO show, premiered in late June. Now, The Many Saints of Newark is set during Tony's adolescence in 1960s New Jersey, as his male relatives, especially Dickie, introduce him to a life of violence and crime. Very exciting stuff. You definitely have to check this out. Now, later on in the show, we also have the amazing Dr. Maria Ryan, who's going to be joining us live from NYC. She co-hosts a widely popular radio show every Sunday at 10 a.m. on 77 WABC with Rudy Giuliani called Uncovering the Truth. We're going to chat about what happens when parents disagree over children's COVID-19 vaccinations. We also have another exciting interview with Preferred Health Magazine's publisher and editor-in-chief, Angelina Cappiello, and we're chatting about, is it still a man's world in publishing? Now, stay tuned for Glenn Burtnik. I'm really excited about this. Coming up next, live from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. We'll be right back from the famous Top Golf Swing Suite, where Glenn is waiting for me. Don't move a muscle.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back to A Moment of Zen, my beautiful people, right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We are live from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, and I'm sitting in the famous Top Golf with breathtaking views. And in just a bit, we're going to be chatting with Ovation Hall's headliner, Glenn Burtnik. Now, Glenn has been a staple of the Jersey Shore rock scene since the 1980s, but his career path hasn't always been a linear one, as he often goes down unusual paths for a mainstream artist, appearing in a variety of Beatles tribute acts, most notably in the Broadway production of Beatlemania, where he took on the role of Paul McCartney alongside rocker Marshall Crenshaw, who played John Lennon. Now, beyond his days at the Jersey Shore and mimicking the Fab Four, he also did several runs as a member of the band Styx in both the lead guitar and bass roles. He also earned a reputation as a skilled songwriter, penning tunes for Randy Travis, Don Henley, and Patti Smith, among others. Sometimes Love Just Ain't Enough is one of my absolute favorites, and he's written that one. Now, you can catch him right here at Ocean Casino Resort in Glenn Burtnik's Summer of Love concert series. Now, the concert is a unique concept that celebrates the music of the Woodstock era. And that was a pivotal moment in music history that defined what became known as the counterculture generation. The show features tribute acts replicating the looks and sounds of artists such as Janis Joplin, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Tina Turner, Sly and the Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, and so many others. Now, the show runs every Friday and Sunday through August 29th, right here at Ocean Casino Resort's Ovation Hall. Welcome to the show, Rockstar. Now, you have continued to perform the Beatles music and other tribute acts, and you were in Beatlemania. And my question to you is, why the strong Beatles connection?
Well, you know, I am that age that I remember sitting in my family living room with my folks and my older brothers, siblings, and when the Beatles came on, Ed Sullivan, and it kind of set off a cultural explosion which affected my life and everyone I know. You know, it's a shadow that has cast over our pop culture ever since. And it's, you know, basically the Beatles have been the soundtrack of my life, as has the music of the Woodstock generation.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
Wow. That's hard. There's so many great ones. You know, offhand, I would have to say It's Getting Better is a really good one.
And that's such a fitting song for the time that we live in right now with COVID-19 and post-pandemic, and where we are right here at Ocean Casino Resort at Ovation Hall, making sure that it's getting better. And you are headlining. Now, this is such an accomplishment, because to be able to almost be reborn essentially in a time where, you know, the world seems to have come at a standing halt, and now here we are, and you have this amazing summer, this amazing opportunity in front of you. I have a question based on me being a millennial. If you could collaborate with one new generation artist, who would it be?
I would say Billie Eilish. I think she's super talented, her and her brother. And yeah, I really like her music a lot.
She's awesome. She has this deep, raspy voice. She has the ability to kind of sway both ways, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of the voice that we love, kind of like you.
Well, something like that, I guess.
Now, do you prefer the group dynamic or working as a solo artist?
Well, you know, I think they each have their strengths and their weaknesses. It's certainly more inspiring when you are interacting with other musicians and collaborating. But also, you know, when you're working alone, you can really get to the point and do and say what you want to say. So I think they each have their strong points.
Well, as a strong point, you are a songwriter, and that is one of your strong points. Has COVID been a time of creativity for you, or has it been more of like falling into a dark place, so to speak? Because a lot of artists, I'm an artist myself, I have a lot of friends, a lot of musicians, a lot of them fell into this, this rut of just kind of repetitiveness and like a darkness, while others used it. Personally, I did myself. I developed my whole show during COVID. I used it as a time of rebirth, and I made the best of it. God gives you lemons, you make lemonade. What was your take on this for your creativity?
I think it was a great challenge. It's like, okay, if you consider yourself a creative person, and by the way, I think that this is true of everyone, not necessarily just artists, but it kind of demanded a certain creativity of, okay, how do you want to spend your life? How can you react to this era where you're not going back to your regular routine, but you have time on your hands? How do you want to spend it? How do you want to enrich your own life? And I'm sure it was a little depressing at first, maybe for most people, but for me, it was just like, okay, Glenn, you think of yourself as an artist, well then create and find new ways to create. And I enjoyed that challenge, that assignment. And I actually got a lot done. I enjoyed it.
I love it that you called it an assignment. I almost felt like it was an assignment for me as well. Almost like God gave us an assignment to really kind of figure things out and kind of take a couple of steps back to go so many more steps forward. And I think that with all the changes happening between Ocean Casino Resort, between Ovation Hall, between this amazing Summer of Love concert series that you are headlining and involved in, this is an epic moment for you. And I just heard today that you became a grandfather, so congratulations.
Thanks.
And you know what? My last question in under 1 minute. If you can go back and change one bad decision that you made in your life, what would it be?
Wow. One bad decision. I've made no bad decisions in my life. How about that? I feel like this is the path. This is the path that I was meant to take, and I have no regrets. I'm happy.
You passed the test, my dear friend. That was the right answer. I can tell you for a fact, I ask this question all the time. And when people actually go back and give me the this and that, I think to myself, well, that's great exposition, but not so much for entertainment, because the one thing that we can all bank on is being able to pride ourselves on the decisions that we have made and stand behind them. And if you can wholeheartedly say that you've made no bad decisions and you're exactly where you're supposed to be, then guess what? You have just paved the way truly for the Concert of Love music series. And that's what you're here to do back in Atlantic City, and your next chapter begins. So thank you so much for being on our show. It means the world to me because you, my darling, are a headliner.
Thank you.
And now you've heard it all right here on A Moment of Zen, live from Ocean Casino Resort at Top Golf Swing Suite. You're listening to Zen Sam's on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this. That was the legendary Glenn Burtnik.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X. Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now, coming up in just a few, we have Dr. Maria Ryan. She co-hosts a widely popular radio show every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on 77 WABC with Rudy Giuliani called Uncovering the Truth. She has vast knowledge on a variety of topics that affect our daily lives. She's really knowledgeable in healthcare, leadership, and foreign policy. We're going to chat about what happens when parents disagree over children's COVID-19 vaccinations. Now, I say let's hold off vaccinating children and teens against COVID-19 for now. Prioritizing adults is our best shot, and in most countries, vaccination of the highest risk groups is not nearly complete. So does it make sense to vaccinate children and adolescents? Well, 18 months into the pandemic, some countries that have achieved high vaccination coverage in adults have already started vaccinating adolescents aged 12 to 15. We know that COVID-19 is less severe in children and in adolescents. Most just have mild infections or are asymptomatic. Studies have found multi-system inflammatory syndrome and long COVID to be uncommon after COVID-19 infection, especially in young people. And I'll be perfectly honest, I'm quite skeptical about vaccinating Alexa, who's not even 6 years old. It's not the government is going to track us kind of thing. It's more the speed the approval came. When I told my husband that I didn't want to vaccinate our daughter anytime soon, regardless of requirements, we argued. He was at, we want this, and I was at, no way in hell. So what do we want to do the most as parents? That's the golden question. Well, we want to protect our children, and that has turned decision-making around this topic on its ear. So what happens when two parents disagree on whether to give their child the vaccine? It's challenging now that children aged 12 and older are eligible for this vaccination. And with even younger children's eligibility looming in the horizon, can't be good stuff. The pandemic was a circumstance that forced people who usually agree on things or trust one another's decision and parenting skills without much input from the other into very difficult situations. And add to that the political charged banter around vaccines, you can see how things could break down quickly. Now, I spent weeks and weeks researching this vaccine, and my biggest takeaway was fear that in 15 years, we'd be watching commercials on TV with lawyers saying, were you injured from the COVID vaccines of 2021? Call us. And in some states, children 14 and older can get this vaccine without parental permission. That really irked me. Now, joining me today is Dr. Maria Ryan. As I said previously, she co-hosts that widely popular show every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on 77 WABC with Rudy Giuliani called Uncovering the Truth. And I'm curious to hear her perspective on this. She's formerly served as president and CEO of Cottage Hospital. She has diverse healthcare and functional expertise, and she achieved a doctorate in healthcare administration, holds a master's degree in the science of nursing, and is board certified as a family nurse practitioner with a specialty in emergency medicine. She knows her stuff. Now, Dr. Ryan is also a fierce defender of patients' rights, and that's why I'm having her on right now. Welcome to the show, beautiful lady.
Good morning, Zen. You gave a prime example of how you and your husband are looking at a serious issue and you both disagree. And I feel for parents because a doctor isn't a doctor isn't a doctor. I've seen some doctors come out on television recommending things that are really bizarre. So parents do have to do their homework. This is not an easy subject. So 12 years old to 16, we have been seeing an increase of what's called myocarditis in children who have been vaccinated after their second dose. And we've been seeing this with both Pfizer and Moderna. So what is myocarditis? It's an inflammation of the heart. And we're also seeing fluid in the pericardium around the heart, which can interrupt the muscle working. It's a very serious thing. It's been happening within 3 days of the second shot. Most of the children have been hospitalized and have survived, but we did just recently have a death in the United States. We do have a handicap in our reporting system. So our numbers are always going to be lower than we know because the reporting is voluntary. So there's a particular form you fill out and you send into the CDC. So we know there's larger numbers. Right now, we're saying there's over 200 cases of these myocarditis. Jerusalem, who started doing 12 to 18 way before the United States, has seen much more myocarditis than we have in the United States. And this can have long-term consequences for the children and their heart. Germany took the step that I would have. They've stopped mass vaccination for 12 to 16. Basically, they're saying only if that child has such severe illness and you look at the risk and benefits and you decide, you know what, it's worth the risk of taking this vaccine for this particular child than to get COVID and potentially have a lot of sequelae from the COVID. But Germany took a really good step. I thought the CDC was going to put a stop to it here in the United States. But if you look at their website, they just put out a cautionary tale that this has been happening at higher rates than expected and to look at the risk and benefits. So they're leaving it up to the parents and the doctors. But I too, you said something very wise then. When you look statistically at children who have got COVID, they don't get hospitalized. They don't die. You know, there's someone could pick a rare occasion. Oh, look at this poor child was on a ventilator, but that's rare. That's very, very rare. The highest risk people are adults, the elderly, and those with immunocompromised states.
Yes. And as a mom, for me, my biggest fear is giving this vaccine to my barely 6-year-old little girl if, for instance, it's mandated for them to travel or whatnot, which I would hold off on. There's no way on God's green earth my child is getting this vaccine anytime soon, because it was the speed at which this was done, almost to appease society, the government, and it's like collateral damage. All right, well, whatever happens, happens, but let's just get back. And just vaccinating people without getting that proper data, the documentation, the years and years of research that typically goes into this stuff, I feel it was rushed, especially for kids. Adults, like you said, very different. But with the kids, they shouldn't be part of this equation.
I am so with you, Zen. I was actually shocked that the vaccine was allowed to be given under anybody under 18, and it's still under emergency use authorization. So nobody should mandate it. I believe it's against the law to mandate it under EUA. Now, an employer could mandate an adult to get a shot if it was under the traditional way of getting approval. So I'm very surprised the nurses in Texas who said, I'm not getting this shot, and were fired, because it was my understanding legally you cannot be fired under emergency use authorization.
Well, they should sue if they can.
I agree.
And, with social media becoming a primary source of information for millions, this fear mongering or deliberately arousing public fear to gain, listeners and readers is becoming a trend amongst a lot of these reporters in these mainstream media outlets. And in the media, this fear mongering feeds into the conspiracy theories that grip American society today and have for decades past. And this kind of reporting is redundant. It's a false dilemma in which a fake problem is created, assuming that all consequences or premises are true. And as of late, it seems that conspiracy theorists have vehemently inserted themselves in government and political discourse. And, from COVID-19 to the 2020 elections, there are one too many elected officials that, despite their access to expert judgment, believe, proven falsehoods. So when you take my child and you add a 6-year-old problem into something that she doesn't need, now Mama Bear comes out. And I'm like, no. It's just, that makes no sense to me. So I don't know. I thought maybe I was crazy. That's why I have an expert like you to come on to validate my nutsness.
No, no nutness on you. You have great instincts, and you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the mainstream media. They have made propaganda out of a serious issue in this pandemic. They've told half truths. They went all over hydroxychloroquine when it's a perfectly safe drug and it has a lot of good antiviral properties. It was so politicized. Even the mask. There's been few studies on the mask, whether it can prevent somebody to get COVID, and it really can't. Can it decrease your chances a little bit? Yeah, it's minuscule and statistically not significant, but maybe people would feel better wearing it. But it was almost like people were ridiculed if they chose not to wear a mask. And everything about this pandemic has been highly politicized. I saw my country, unfortunately, in a different light. And I don't mean my countrymen, I mean the media, big tech, censoring other physicians, other nurse practitioners. There were 3 physicians in California, emergency department physicians, who came out early in the pandemic to say what they were seeing and what they were using. They were taken off of YouTube because it didn't follow the script that they wanted, everybody to follow. So it's a scary time for that reason, because parents, us as human beings, deserve to hear the truth, the real science, not this fake, we're going to have this political agenda so we can take control over your lives.
And that's what it's about, for
Yes.
the most part. And, during this pandemic, the world desperately needs the media to do its job with the
Yes.
intent to inform, not to just drive clicks. And most of them are just not doing their job. And that's where I'm feeling extremely frustrated.
Well, you're doing a great job, Zen. Just having these conversations and bringing it out to people is going to be very helpful.
Yes, and I love your show, by the way. I listen to you all the time. And those of you who do not know Dr. Maria Ryan, you definitely have to check out her very popular show on 77 WABC with Rudy Giuliani called Uncovering the Truth. And Maria is not just a great radio host and so well informed, and mom and entrepreneur, healthcare practitioner. You are amazing. What don't you do?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I even do windows. What the heck? I'm a cleaning freak too.
Hey, you want to come do mine? You can come do my windows. Oh boy, it's just that time. But listen, thank you so much for coming on. I had such a good time talking to you.
I have had a wonderful time too, Zen, and keep bringing the truth to the people.
That's what I'm doing, bringing the truth to the people. You're listening. Thank you for coming on. You guys are listening to A Moment of Zen. I am your host, Zen Sams, right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
And women who were leaders in these family businesses printed and published under a male relative's name. Elizabeth Timothy is often recognized as the first female newspaper publisher in America. She worked in partnership with Benjamin Franklin to publish the South Carolina Gazette in the 1730s and 1740s after the death of her husband, who was Franklin's original partner. And was typical of the time, the Gazette was not published under her name, but rather her son's, who at the time was a mere teenager. Imagine that. But legally took over his father's business. Now, one rare example of one who did not hide behind a pseudonym was Mary Catherine Goddard, the second printer to print the Declaration of Independence. Her name appears right under John Hancock as the printer of the document. Now, women still often entered publishing houses as secretaries, lower paying positions with little hope of advancement. And when men entered these publishing houses in those entry level roles, they quickly rose and changed from basically clerical to editorial assistants rather quickly. And it's always been a man's world. But despite these hurdles, today women make up the majority of those employed in publishing. But still, tend to dominate in the lower level positions and typically still earn less than their male counterparts. Now, the 20th century saw the transition from women in clerical positions into professional roles, and yet not all was equal. Many women faced wage and other forms of discrimination. It wasn't until the women's rights and feminist movements in the 1970s where women publishers organized to fight for more rights and equality in the workplace. Now, here to give us her perspective is Brooklyn-born Preferred Health Magazine's publisher, no-nonsense editor-in-chief, Angelina Cappiello. Welcome to the show, beautiful lady.
Well, thank you for having me, beautiful.
So now your career is pretty incredible, right? You entered your journalism career just 1 month shy of the tragic 9/11 events at the New York Post. Tell us about how that transpired for you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, who knew, right? This was going to happen. I was, you get out of college, you're so idealistic, you're going to report the truth and crack down on some great, investigative journalism, and you get there and it's, on the topic, it is a boys club. And again, it's just a boys club. I got there thinking I was just going to go ahead and start reporting right away. And half of my job was that because of 9/11 events, and they needed kind of all hands on deck. And so, yes, I was out there reporting on all that tragedy.
And it's interesting because your career has gone from the New York Post. You've worked as a branding officer for B2B and the B2C companies, both nationally and internationally. And then in 2017, you became a publisher at Preferred Health Magazine. But you're also a mom, and your son was born in 2007. Is that correct?
My daughter was
your daughter. I'm sorry. So as a mom, you literally had to take yourself out to focus on your family and bringing up, a child, which is not the easiest thing, and juggling your career. How do you, from your perspective, as an editor-in-chief now of a very large magazine with, an incredible one at that too. You do a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
How do you feel that there is still a discrepancy in the publishing world? And you've worked in all facets, right? You've worked in publishing, you've worked in branding, you've worked as a journalist. What's your perspective on this, where things are at currently right now in the world?
I think sadly that they remain the same. I think women absolutely are still undervalued at the office. And I think there is just a lack of respect for what we bring to the table. Again, it's a boys club. I feel like it's always been, even in all facets of branding and all the different, careers that I've had, and even the careers of my friends and what I've seen, what they're going through as officers or as, women in business, that there is this, kind of wall of silence, between the men, and we come in and we're expected to do the same job at less pay.
At less pay.
Less pay. And I just don't understand where that rationale comes in. And I guess, there's a big man in charge, because even in businesses where women are bosses, I do kind of also experience that is the case, where a man might get ahead more quickly than a woman. And when I was a journalist, I actually seen women who were we all entered in at the same time, say out loud to themselves and to me, maybe I should flirt with, the editor-in-chief, or maybe I should flirt with this one so I can get more assignments, so I can get ahead. And it just really, it hurt my feelings to hear another woman say that, and it made me just not want to be there. And honestly, I mean, to work for somebody and to have to think that you would have to stoop down to some kind of level and degrade yourself to get ahead, it's a shame.
It's a shame, and no woman should have to ever feel like that. And this is what we do. We fight for our rights. We are not just women, we're mothers, we're entrepreneurs. We have a platform, you have a platform, and you have taken control. And now you are in a position where you are delegating, and you are now doing it the way I'm doing it, where I'm remaining sensitive to everybody's feelings. I don't discriminate between gender. I don't discriminate between race. I don't care where you come from, what God you pray to. Just please pray to a God, right? Be a good person.
A good person, yes.
And in general, I was reading through this amazing career that you've had, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, she's finally at an amazing place in her life. Would you have gotten to that place quicker if you were a man?
Oh, probably. I think, just part of society, as growing up as a woman, that we, have this ingrained, um, view of ourselves, that maybe we are less than because we see what's happening. We're a product of our environment. Everybody is. But as a woman, it's even harder because you're constantly feeling the need to have to prove yourself. And and it shouldn't be that way. Even as little girls, we're having to prove ourselves against our brothers or or other people. So it's just it's a shame that it's this way. I think we're definitely breaking many barriers since the 20s, but there's still a long way to go. And I think it's something that still needs to be addressed. We can't forget, the Me Too movement is here. We can't just let it be some kind of trends, and we need it just to continue, and we need to really support each other as women. I think that's what's most important.
And I totally agree that supporting each other, if women stood together the way men did, we could rule the world. That's what I say. So definitely supporting and uplifting one another. And talking about supporting and uplifting, you have had an amazing lineup of guests on the covers of your magazines, from Montel Williams to Fran Drescher to Deepak Chopra to you. How do you have such a great magazine? Now tell us a little bit about your publication and why is it so different than just your average, health publication?
Sure. I mean, listen, it started organically for me. This is something that I did not think I would be reporting on health. Okay. I was a crime reporter for a very long time, even wrote for real estate and other things like that. So I focused in on health more so because I had lost my mother 12 years ago to leukemia, and I felt like there were no real answers. And a fan of magazines myself, I feel that there are a lot of magazines that just kind of litter the magazine up with different, ads and tidbits. And I really wanted to focus in on giving people answers to their questions. Maybe they're thinking something that the mainstream news isn't reporting at the time, that I feel is important. And really, myself and my staff, we really just kind of take into consideration what is on people's minds and how we can educate them better. And so that's where we're really going. But I did want to bring up one thing real quick on the topic of, this discrimination against women. I had picked up a book. The name of it is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. And I suggest everyone go get this because it's really based on practical, data-driven information about the gender inequalities for women, and simplest things. This is the greatest book. You need to pick it up, Zen. But it's simple, about the size of your cell phone to the temperature in the office, how it's zeroed in and based on data for men and not women.
Really? And say the name again.
So Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. The author is Caroline Criado Perez. And this was actually given to me, ironically enough, suggested to me by Sarah Chalke, who is an actress you might know of. She was in Firefly Lane. And she suggested this book. And she's in broadcasting on that show, which is great. So it's a kind of comes full circle here, but I think that's a great book for everyone to.
Well, thank you for that. Now, in your magazine, you focus on topics like mob mentality, overcoming anxiety, living with PTSD, addiction, emotional intelligence, and a list of other things. Even talk of CBD and THC and alternative and holistic medicines of sorts. What you have a vast a knowledge that is incredible, because you come across so much information and data. How do you pick and choose the most interesting topics? And is it something that what the public wants, or is it a lot of it driven by you internally?
I would say both, because honestly, I think it's everyone, honestly. It's myself, it's the readers, it's the public, it's what I'm seeing that's not being spoken about. It's our staff who's interested in things as well. So it's definitely a collaboration of thoughts and interests that we really want to expose. For instance, with mom mentality, I felt that was something that was really needing to be spoken about, and it wasn't being addressed. Mental health is not always being addressed. For some reason, I feel with mainstream media, it's a constant hush over that topic. And I feel like if we can really just understand why things are happening, maybe we can solve those problems. And that's why I'd like to report on a lot of mental health issues, like you said.
I love that you report on this kind of stuff. And I also love that you think outside the box. When I was speaking to a common friend of ours, Melissa Billy Clark, who was also, I interviewed her. She's an incredible soul. We talked about how I had used cannabis to help me after a trip and fall accident in 2012 where I fractured my face, and I still currently have metal under my orbital and 4 screws down my nasal passage, and I get facial twitches, and so the CBD THC that I use helps with those spasms. And I thought that, look, here we are living in 2021. It's still taboo to hear a mom say, I use THC in any capacity. And so I had another author come on called Danielle Simone Brand, the author of Weed Mom. And she was authorizing moms to inhale. But just like you, having an outlet, a magazine, Preferred Health Magazine is what we're talking about for those of you that are just listening in, is great because now you are in control of the data that you're putting out. And I feel really comfortable knowing that somebody like you is in control of that information, because now I trust it even more.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Well, we have run out of time, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. You are incredible. Your career is incredible, and your magazine is definitely incredible. You guys have to check it out, preferredhealthmagazine.com.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
We are almost at the end of our date, my sexy friends. I'm here live at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, and I'm going to sign off with another crypto news flash. According to Tom Jessup, who is the president of Fidelity Digital Assets, the company is planning to increase staff by 70% because demand for cryptocurrencies continue to keep the firm busy. Fidelity Digital Assets is the subsidiary of the wealth management firm Fidelity Investments, Inc. They've also seen a significant amount for Ethereum. What is Ethereum? Well, Ethereum is a decentralized open source blockchain with smart contract functionality. Ether is the native cryptocurrency of the platform. And after Bitcoin, it's the largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization. Ethereum is the most actively used blockchain. That is a fact. Now they are saying that the new hires will be dedicated to building new products that extend into other areas of crypto assets besides Bitcoin. This is all very exciting stuff, my friends. 2020 was a real breakthrough year for the space, given the interest in Bitcoin that accelerated when the pandemic started. This is very telling and very relevant. So let's keep an eye out over the next few weeks, and we are likely to see even more people toying with the idea. Well, that's a wrap, my friends. Thank you for being loyal listeners. Many of you have already texted me for collaborations, and I love it. Keep those texts coming. You can text feature me or collaboration to 917-575-2321. Again, that number is 917-575-2321. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. or go to 710wor.iheart.com a moment of Zen to watch fully uploaded episodes as of Sunday morning. Remember to tune back in next Saturday at 9 p.m. I have an amazing and very exciting lineup of guests. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, Ocean Casino Resort, right here at the very heart of it all, Romulus Entertainment, Biche Cucina. We have Biche Cucina, Soho and Midtown. Big congratulations to Peter Guimares for that. Helen Yarmak International, and Revere Securities. Follow me on social media at ZenSams with an X. Until next week, remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.